So yeah, let's just jump right in. I'm going to share my screen and get started. So hop over to my presentation. So my name is Edward Pullman. Um, Ed Pullman, as I'm affectionately known within Capital Bike. Seasoned commuter. I've lived in Victoria for over 20 years. I've been a cycling commuter for a little under 20 years, and in that time, I've learned a decent amount about how to safely get around the region on bicycle. And it's easy to forget that the knowledge that I have stored up in my head over many years of cycling around Victoria is knowledge that a first time or a novice rider does not have, because the things that I assume are intuition or I just take for granted now are things that are very unknown to folks when they start riding. And that very much was the case for myself all those years ago. So I'm very happy to host this webinar and impart some of that knowledge on to you folks and offer you some assistance as best I can. And I'm very happy to be doing that today. And thank you very much for attending and in participating in our Fall Go By Bike Week. So I just want to quickly acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen peoples on whose traditional territory we live, and the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wassanic peoples whose historic relationship with the land continue today. So cycling. Why do we do it? Because it's a wonderful thing to do in a city, in any environment, but particularly an urban environment where it has just so many benefits that we all know about, the health benefits associated with exercise, the transportation cost and time savings, the reduction in externalities compared to that of driving. Um, so tons of reasons to cycle, as we all know. And second, here we go. And a big part of why we want to talk about route planning is because part of cycling is having a destination in mind. There's recreational cycling, which is something a lot of us do in our spare time for fitness. But I think one of the real strong benefits we see in cycling is its utilitarian benefit to get yourself from one location to another by means of transportation that is healthy and sustainable. So when we talk about route planning, what we're really talking about is how do we safely get ourselves from point A to point B, because we live on roads that are largely dominated by vehicles. And as anybody with a rudimentary knowledge of physics can tell you, in the event of a conflict between a motorist and a cyclist, the motorist is going to come out on top. So at the end of the day, most riders are what we call traffic intolerant. They don't want to ride on roads with lots of traffic, and if they are riding on those roads, they want to seek out routes that have some degree of separation between themselves and traffic. So seek out routes that are low stress. And so, of course, this then gets into the debate and dilemma that commuter cyclists deal with, and that's direct routes versus non-direct routes. So route planning is all about trade-offs. So very few routes in the region are what we call AAA routes, all ages and abilities routes. It's difficult to get to stay on a continuous route that takes you from one spot to another. The same way you would drive, for instance, right? So while we do have regional trails, they don't necessarily take us to the destinations that we need to go, such as the universities, such as the hospitals. Um, you look at the majority of the population lives within the core communities of Esquimalt, Saanich, Victoria, and Oak Bay, and obviously folks living um, essentially east of Douglas Street don't have easy access, don't have ready access to our regional trails in the area. So definitely need to look at AAA routes and where we can have those routes. And of course, we don't have continuous AAA routes. So if we want to maintain a high level of safety and comfort, folks will very often be looking at detours and routes to take that will add additional time. And as I noted at the bottom here, trail riding versus road riding. While there's definitely greater comfort on trails, we do have the issues of greater risk of pedestrian and bike conflicts. Of course, because, not very many pedestrians on the road, but lots of pedestrians on our trails and lots of issues with high usage of those trails, and of course, inadequate underbuilt facilities on our trails. One of the things the CRD is currently committed to is the widening of the regional trails, which which Capital Bike has spoken in support of, because really, if you want to reduce those conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists, you just need more space to work with. The current trails are, roughly 4 meters in some parts, 5 meters in other parts, but really we need to start talking about a 6 meter trail if we're going to have proper separation between cyclists and pedestrians. So all that to say is that when we're considering routes on trails, we just really need to be conscious of the fact that these trails aren't designed for high-speed rides and for getting from point A to point B fast. If we want to get from point A to point B fast, we should be taking the road. So this is an old study done. I can't remember where exactly this data came from. But what you can see here is just an idea of the comfort level that survey respondents had versus various different separations on the roadway between a bike lane and the traffic on the road. So you can see that solid painted buffer has decent level of comfort. You can see up at the very top, a striped bike lane with no buffer had very low level of comfort, while the greater degree of physical separation resulted in a greater degree of feelings of comfort. So nothing really too surprising there. Planters, of course, came out the clear winner when we're putting large concrete planters between traffic and between road traffic and bike traffic. Then that's strongly supported by cyclists. And then you just see some various photos around. The top photo there is on Denman Street. I believe that's crossing at Shelbourne. And then on the right is the ENN Trail, and at the bottom, that's the Hornby separated bike lane in Vancouver. I believe on the left is the courthouse. So just some of the general tips I was speaking to before. Avoid uncontrolled left turns. Make left turns at signalized intersections or in turning in a dedicated turning lane if you aren't turning without a light. Generally, rush hour is between 7 a.m. Oh, sorry, that should be 7 a.m. and 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and then 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So these are when roads and trails are generally busier, and watch your speed on shared trails. And then, if you are riding an e-bike and you do want to do the upwards of 30 kilometers an hour and, you wanting to ride during those busier times, consider sticking to the roads and staying off shared trails, just because you're definitely going to have more challenges with the higher level of congestion. And if a commuting with speed is your goal, then yeah, definitely be looking at what other options there are. So some websites to check out: Google Maps, bikemaps.org, CRD, bike map, openstreetmap.org, bikerouteplanner.com. And, folks, I'm a little embarrassed to say this. I thought I had updated this, but I must not have properly saved it. Cycle.travel is the tool I'm going to be reviewing today. And it's a great tool. I recommend you all check it out. It's great for planning cycling routes. So just jumping right in. So Google Maps. What to say about Google Maps? Obviously, it's one of the most helpful tools for cyclists for getting around, as it's going to have Google's extremely high level of um, strong user interface, um, fast workability. You can put in multiple routes, you can get a quick answer, and then you can easily follow this on your phone. So the problem with Google Maps is that some of those cycling routes it gives you are not necessarily very reliable. So this, for example, is the route traveling from my old address on Vancouver Street, close to Beacon Hill Park, and going to George J. Elementary, just up on Cook Street by Princess Avenue here. And you can see by the routes that Google has given you, boy, they've really done some head scratchers here. So Google has a really weird thing about the Pandora Avenue intersection where it just struggles to show traffic, cycling traffic allowed to drive through because there's been a vehicle closure on there. They seem to think that also extends to cyclists. So a lot of the times Google really struggles for some intersections like this one to show you a proper route going through. Funnily enough, that's never been a problem with, say, Humboldt in the same way. But here on Vancouver Street, it's been a major issue. You can see here for a route from pretty much from the Galloping Goose trail at Trans-Canada Highway and Tillicum Road going to the hospital, Royal Jubilee Hospital. It really wants to take you on a very direct route to get you there. And as you can see, it's estimating, 7-ish kilometers, 28 minutes. Now, this is the map cycle travel I was referring to before. So you'll notice that it keeps you on the safe um, keeps you on the safe route. It keeps you on the trail going all the way into town, and then down Pandora Avenue has you transferring onto Fort Street and then taking Fort all the way there. So you can see the total travel distance here is 8.5 kilometers, so 31 minutes. And then compare that to here so it's a little bit longer in travel time, but it's giving you a much safer option compared to the 3 options offered on Google Maps. So cycle.travel for all you folks, I really strongly recommend you check it out. So beyond that, now I'm just going to quickly mention the CRD bike map is worth checking out. It's got some good side routes and kind of off-road routes that aren't necessarily marked. So say, for instance, if you look up by Lansdowne Road, by Richmond over on the top right, you can see that there is markings for Dean Avenue, and then there's Foul Bay. Unfortunately, this map also has some real challenges because looking at this map, you would see Foul Bay Avenue and then the Dean Green connector, and you would assume that, oh well, they're a similar level of comfort. Or you would look at this and you'd see the orange and you think, oh, that's maybe not as comfortable as the blue as the bike lane. And there's that little bit of orange on Foul Bay Avenue, and it's like, well, actually, you definitely want to take Dean Avenue in this situation over Foul Bay Avenue, because there's a lot more traffic on Foul Bay Avenue, and that little section of orange on Foul Bay Avenue that lacks a bike lane, I would argue that's a much more dangerous section than any of the stretch on Dean Avenue, which has several barriers for cars to drive through. So vehicle traffic much lower on that stretch of road. And then again on Richardson down in Victoria, that route, you can see that it's got the same coloring halting as well. So yeah, this actually in my mind and then you can see on Bay Street, for instance, they've got some red. So yeah, this one really has some lack of standards. So for instance, some routes in Saanich missing due to having more than 1,000 cars per day, such as Matic and Oba. Anyway, so this CRD map, it's good, but it's also got some real problems, as we can see. Bikemaps.org, which you folks may be familiar with, is a website where you can put markers for various hazards. So right here, I've got Finlayson and Douglas Street, and you can see that There's a high number of hazards at the Douglas and Finlayson intersection. As anybody who's ridden that intersection knows, it's a bit of a nightmare. So this is a good resource for helping you identify some challenging spots on your route, and also being able to make notes of where possibly maybe you had a bad run-in with a driver. If you want to make note of that, then you are welcome to do that on bikemaps.org. It's obviously a user-powered site. So now I'm just going to switch over to the suggested routes that were submitted. So as we can see here, the first one submitted was Oliver Street in Oak Bay to Uptown. This is a very, very simple route, I'm happy to say. Thanks to the amazing work of the city of Victoria, the fine residents of Oak Bay can now jauntily cycle down McNeil Avenue to Richardson and find themselves on a traffic-calmed route all the way into town. Then head up, I believe that's Oh, that's funny. Just have a zoom in here. And yeah, there you go. So Google is suggesting that you take Cook Street to get to, so yeah, just your standard silly error from Google. It doesn't want to send you down the traffic closed Vancouver Street. Now, of course, if we go look at cycle travel, there you go. You can see Cycle Travel has actually recommended the correct route of taking Vancouver Street over Cook Street. So there you have it, folks. Definitely recommend this tool. Okay, next one. I'm not going to spend too long on this one because this was a route somebody sent in for Nanaimo. But again, I just want to demonstrate to folks on the call how the route is going to be mapped differently here. So you can see that this route is definitely taking, so while Google is just kind of sticking you on a major arterial here, you can definitely see here on Google that it's, sorry, on Cycle Travel, that it's doing an effort to keep you on some of the safer, well, some of the less traveled off-road routes. So you can see here this total distance is 12.6. And then, oh, wow, look at that. It is actually a very similar distance. So, but again, definitely, I'm not going to go into detail on the Nanaimo route because I feel like I'd be doing a disservice given my lack of knowledge of the cycling routes in and around. So I would definitely recommend checking out Cycle Travel for a route. So this was actually an extremely fascinating route. And whoever sent it in, if you're watching this call, I'm happy to chat with you about it afterwards because, yeah, I was really quite surprised by this route. So, so this person wants to leave this is the Glanford area, west of the Pat Bay Highway. So traveling down into My Hood, Gorge Tillicum, and then going downtown. So the so the funny thing about this route is I know this area well, and I know that in the past couple of years there have been some improvements to this route here. So this is Raymond Street South, and it's actually a straight shot to take Raymond Street all the way over here to Raymond Street North and then connect through and up to this connection. So it's not at all surprising that Google has gotten this route wrong, because as we've seen with the Vancouver Street examples, there are lots of examples where Google struggles to give us direct routes that involve road closures and off-routes. So if we go look at this on Cycle Travel, however, they actually give a very similar route. So while with this route, it's taking you straight into, and I mean, I would also recommend not taking Cary Road. It's not a very pleasant stretch to ride down. But then, yeah, that's actually, and then funnily enough, actually, the suggestion from Cycle Travel is not even to get on the Colquitt's River Trail, which is right around here, but to just stay on Interurban Road and head down. So in both these cases, Yeah, I would definitely argue you're not getting the best route from either of those for somebody. If I was recommending this route, I would definitely recommend getting on Raymond Street, coming down, um, assuming they're comfortable with it. This connection over Mackenzie Avenue is not very comfortable. It's not a very cyclable bridge. That might be why it's not recommending it. It's technically a pedestrian bridge. So you are obligated to walk across it, and then the connection down to Raymond Street. But as you can see, it's definitely a more direct route, and the section of Cary and Marigold all lacks bike lane. So it's quite an unpleasant route. As for after to get on the gorge, I mean, really, you've got a few options, and again, actually, interestingly enough, um, it's sending you down onto Gorge Road and up. And this section of Gorge is actually very unpleasant. I would never recommend anyone cycle on it, especially trying to make an uncontrolled turn onto this road. And then up here, and then making a bit of an awkward left onto Washington and down on, versus staying on Gorge and then getting on further down at Jutland. So yeah, this is the one route I am definitely challenged by. Um, and then slightly different from Google, just suggesting you go up to Burnside and then down and getting on the trail where the SPCA building is. So yeah, definitely a challenging route, this one. And in both cases, I would have suggestions different than what's offered by the map. So the last one here, Myrtle Avenue, so Oaklands to Roderick Street. So I believe that's right around where the animal hospital is, close to Mayfair Mall. So here, so again, Google's offering you a bunch of different routes. And really, I think we can all agree we want to stay off Hillside. Hillside's a very unpleasant road to ride. Cedar Hill, this connection is pretty bonkers. I would never recommend someone do this. Um, well, I mean, the turn off of onto Cedar Hill Road, definitely not great. Um, this section of Cook Street, definitely not great. The route it's recommending essentially is to be on Hillside for just a little bit, and then you've got a pedestrian controlled light you can cross at here. You can stay on Gosworth the entire way up to Cedar Hill Road, and then get on Lang Street, do a big climb here. Get on Cook Street. You do have a bike lane for this stretch, so you could do a two-phase turn to get on Finlayson, and then Finlayson all the way up. Suggests you're getting on Glasgow and then Tolmy, and then um, down to the final destination here. Now, interestingly enough, the suggestion from Cycle Travel, it doesn't suggest you go on Glasgow. It suggests you stay on Blanchard Street. Then make your left turn onto Oak. So this is actually not, I would say this is not advisable, because your left turn onto Tolmy is going to be challenging here. You're going to have to do a two-phase turn. While if you did as Google suggested and went down Glasgow, you would actually have an easier turning option here. So that's all to say that, like, while Cycle Travel isn't producing perfect routes, it is on a whole producing better routes than what Google is producing. So I would trust Cycle Travel much more to give me a safer overall route, even if there's definitely some kinks in it, while Google might just, send me down a road which is awful for cycling. I have a bit more faith in this tool to give me a better route. So those were the routes submitted to me, and so I've covered all that. I've covered all my information. Um, yeah, I'm very happy if anybody has any questions. If anybody would like to put a route in the comments, in the chat, I could even throw it up here for fun and try to build something right now. I will give folks a moment if they want to do that. Otherwise, that's about it for me. So hello to Joanne who just joined. I was actually just saying that I've essentially wrapped up my presentation now. We have recorded the session, so we will be able to post that. But if anybody has any routes, cycling routes that they would like to contribute, then I invite them to enter that into the meeting chat, and I'd be happy to throw that up on cycle travel in Google Maps and build a route. Or if anybody has any questions at all about what I've discussed, any questions about Capital Bike, I'm very happy to answer any of those. Oh, Ellen, I see there was a. Here we go. Okay, yeah, to Caledonia. Okay, so that is not too hard of a route, thankfully. Um, okay, let's try this again. Control C. Google really doesn't want to let me copy that, so I'm just going to do it. 646 Michigan Avenue. Street to 1105 Caledonia. Yeah, there you go. The glorious Google Maps sending you straight down Cook Street for your destination, which obviously we don't want to do. So let's hop over to cycle travel. Do 646. There we go. Then 1105 Caledonia. Oh, interesting. So you can see quite the difference in the suggested route there. And it's funny because I wouldn't necessarily have suggested that route. I would have 3.1 kilometers, 11 minutes, and this route they've selected here is 3.1 kilometers. So that's really something. So you can see how what an absolutely horrendous job Google has done with this route. This is really something. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with how bad of a route Google has come up with here. Versus here, which is a much better route. So yeah, I mean the other thing to consider is to depending on how much of a rush you're in, you could go down Bridgeway, you could go to the connection here, get across, get on Vancouver Street, and then just take that up to your destination. I guess it's really just about how much another idea is you could come up Douglas Street, stay on the right here, and then get on Academy Close here and take this pathway through, and then get yourself onto Quadra Street, and then down Convent, and then now you're on Vancouver Street there. So that would be another option, I think. And then, I mean, your most AAA route is just, yeah, getting straight on this pathway here, getting down to Vancouver Street and back up. Okay, so just looking back to my list, I've got 933 Admirals Road. So sorry, Ellen, to your question, Cycle Travel app shows a different route. Um, uh, yeah, it definitely does. And yeah, I would probably, as I was saying before, I'd probably go with the cycle travel route, as generally it's producing safer routes to get you around. So I'm just going to try the Admirals to Macaulay Elementary route here. I mean, that one's yeah. Yeah, so just looking at this route from Admirals to Macaulay, yeah, really the challenge here is that you don't have trail access onto the ENN. I don't know if that's something that is conceivable because, yeah, otherwise you're stuck pretty much on Admirals all the way down. And then really all the way up here. This is really the only route that's going to take you north-south. It's either Admirals or over on Lamson, and this is obviously the preferable route. Yeah, beyond that, going down to what's interesting here is it's suggesting you get on Lyle and then take a few side streets to get down here. I mean, that looks reasonable. I don't know the status. I can understand wanting to. Lyle Street is get slated for cycling upgrades, but I can certainly understand that being not a super great cycling route at times. Let's just try this route now, and then here we go. Hmm. So yeah, and this route just says stay on Lyle Street. Um, which is interesting because then there's a conversation to be had about the trade-off of being on this section of Lamson, because I don't think this section of Lamson is actually very desirable. So you might actually be better off doing this little cut through to get yourself over. Um, so definitely some things to keep in mind. Okay, so folks, that's all the examples that were given. So I think I'm going to end it here unless somebody wants to type another one into the chat. But other than that, yeah, if you do have additional route questions, you're very welcome to just send us an email, info@capitalbike.ca, or just visit our website and use the form on the website. And, as always, we are supported by, we're a nonprofit charity in the community. So, if you do want to support our work, feel free to go to our website, capitalbike.ca, and sign up as a member and make a charitable donation, because it's your support that helps grow our organization and help get more people cycling more places more often. So So thanks very much for your time, folks, and I hope you have a wonderful, dry rest of your day.